Okay, we're back. All
Yeah.
right, go ahead.
Yeah. So Conan's documentary about his diagnosis of PTSD and him going to therapy. Haven't watched it, but that is something on my list of things that must watch. But just it makes me happy because I don't think black men get as much spaces or create as much spaces for themselves to talk about their mental health or even analyze or look and try to understand it better for themselves, even if they're not doing that out in the community with other people. The spaces for them to do that within themselves is very limited. Um, so I think it's just amazing where we are in the sense of us being able to label those things and say, this is what's going on with me. So then we can begin to sort of understand how we work with that. I'm a big advocate for therapy. I know it doesn't work for everybody. And when I say therapy, I don't mean just sitting down with somebody and talking. Therapy looks different for everyone. And that could be, and I think my favorite type of therapy was group or, like how we have conversations sometimes, Gavin,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
where it's my friends, it's my people, it's my community. That's where I find my therapy and my healing, because those are the people that are going to validate my experiences and understand and not judge me for it, make me feel different for it, or make me feel like I
Mm,
have to change my entire existence just to be deemed a good person or stable or mentally healthy or whatever you want to call it. There's just an
mm,
acceptance of, I'm struggling with this. Yeah, I get it, bro. Me too. And
mm,
there's no, yeah, you can do this about it and this about it. Sometimes you don't always need that. Sometimes just that, bruh, yeah, this life
mm.
is hard is enough therapy for me once in a while. So yeah, that there is a lot of trauma in our community, a lot, and it's not just trauma we experience; it's generational trauma as well that has been passed down from
Mm.
one generation to the next, and every generation has dealt with it differently. But I think we're the generation that's really naming it, and we're really aware of it, and we're really
Mm.
working to undo it and be better, and I feel like
Mm.
black women have definitely um have a upper hand, I guess, in that, because I see a lot of black women doing the work, and have been doing the work to change this idea of what their trauma is and heal from that and grow from that and try different things to do that. And it's beautiful. It is so beautiful to see so many black women just going from these broken women or heart little black girls that wasn't loved or cared for, learn to love themselves, learn to care for themselves, learn to pour into themselves and pour into each other and carry each other and uplift each other and do it in such a loving and accepting way that it allows us to be vulnerable, and we don't have to be
Mm.
strong and we don't have to have it together, and we can have nice things and deserving things and take our times and figure it out. We don't have to be the brightest in the room always. We don't have to be excellent at all times. Our hair
Mm.
doesn't have to be laid at all times, because
Yeah.
that's also bloody trauma.
I say nothing
So,
in it. I say nothing. We'll talk about the conversation we had before we started. So, what I'm saying, innit? Yeah.
so yeah, it's beautiful to see black women doing that, and I think I just want that more for black men. I want to
Mm.
see black men in their joy and in their healing and their growth. And I'm not saying there isn't. There's a lot of black men doing the work as well. But I think there's just not enough based on how we're seeing a lot of the young boys go about with dealing with their own trauma. They don't have a lot of those role models or examples of black men showing them what that looks like and being honest about that journey.
I think a lot of it is them not seeing people who are vulnerable,
Yeah.
and knowing that being vulnerable isn't a weakness.
Yeah.
That's something that they don't get to see very often. If they do, it's only like in a movie for a split second, then they go back
Yeah.
to being a hero. So they don't see that. And I think a lot of the young people who I speak to, that you were saying before, there is this protection, this this kind of sphere that they make for around themselves, the force field that they make around themselves, that no one can hurt them or try to hurt. And it's so sad to see just young men like just having to. I was speaking to one young man yesterday, and he was just like adamant that he's going to be all right, but he's not going to do the work to be better. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, he thinks that he's just going to roll out of his bed, he's going to turn 16, and everything's going to be working fine for him. And we're just like, nope, that's not how it is. You have to put the work in from now.
Yeah.
And change, your thought process, the way that you want to work, and everything like that. That would lead you to be the man that you need to be. And I said to him, it's a step process. It's not just gonna, but there's a lot of young men and men who are trapped in that bubble of emotion. Can they be vulnerable to a woman, to anybody, and struggling with what is up and what is down, what is left and what is right. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm kind of lucky that I didn't have to go through certain routes to feel okay and feel normal.
Yeah.
I say quote unquote normal.
Yeah.
Because that's relative every single day.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that I don't have to go through certain avenues to find that. Whereas, as you were saying before about the anger, the trauma fuels the anger, which then fuels everything else. And I guess when we were working together, we were working with young men who one of them in particular, he felt like he had no way out. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And I just remember going home and thinking about him all the time and hoping that he's going to be all right, hoping he's going to be safe. And do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this is what I feel about all the boys that I work with, all the young men that I work with.
No, it's so true. I think also the world, once again, doesn't really create room for you, not just as black men, but just as men in general, to be vulnerable. You know, that's not something that's glorified or glamorized. So it makes it harder for us, especially as practitioners, to make it attractive enough to entice young people to be like, yeah, that's something I would want. And that's a trait I'd want within me, to be a vulnerable young man and be able to process and express my feelings, The world doesn't tell you that that's a good thing. And that's why
it doesn't.
I think the examples around you of men who you respect and see as real life people, the community members around you, if you saw parts of them being vulnerable, you would feel more validated in that, to express that, because this is a man you look up to already and you respect, and he's showing you he can be vulnerable but also be a man who's respected. And I think more examples of that will really help young people be a lot more open to trying to even understanding themselves and their feelings and their vulnerabilities. And number one thing I'm always going to say, especially when we're working with trauma, and I think we started the conversation before we started recording about the vulnerability, and a lot of us as black people, we never want to be victims.
Yeah.
We never want to be even when we're victims, it takes a lot for you to convince us that we're victims.
We're victims, yeah, exactly.
Because we don't.
It perpetuates other things.
Yeah, because how dare you tell me I'm a victim and I've survived everything I've survived?
Yeah. I've
gone through what I've gone through and I've come out and I'm still here breathing and kicking and screaming. You're going to tell me I'm a victim? No, thank you. I rebuke it. But actually, yes, babe, you are a victim, and it's okay that you can coexist in your strength and your victimhood. It doesn't take away from the other one. But that's not what the world tells you. The world sometimes tells you choose one. You can't be a survivor and a victim at the same time. What are you?
Yeah.
Make a choice. And I think those are the things that are really interesting to me, because, everyone wants to be perceived one way and seen one way and not another way. But like, no one's linear, no one's one way. all of us exist in different pockets of ways of existence. So there's, at one point I could be strong and weak at the same time. At one point I could be powerless and powerful at the same time. It never has to be one or the other. But I think we live in a world that tells us continuously pick one. You're either powerful or powerless.
Yeah.
But actually, maybe my voice makes me powerful, but I'm actually powerless to make the changes resource-wise in my life. So no, I'm not just a victim. I'm also somebody with a voice who can speak up for myself and demand better. So that gives me power, right?
Yeah.
But it's just how you go about finding those little pockets of where you do have power, and using those to amplify the places where you don't have power, and not looking at the places that you don't have power as victimhood or as a negative thing, but rather a position that you've been forced in. And you know, when I think of choices in our lives and how limited the choices are to make good decisions or do the right thing or be better, it would make sense why most of these young children would just decide to I'll get up and figure it out one day.
Yeah. And you know what? They've seen a lot of that. They've seen a lot of people like just getting up and surviving.
Yeah,
one
their
day.
parents, their community around them. There's a lot of them that are like, we'll figure it out day by day. Because actually, to try to say that I'm going to work on this every day and I'm going to be better in an environment that doesn't allow me to do that, it's only harming myself further, because then I'm the one that has to deal with the disappointment every single time. If I don't try, I don't try. There's no winning or losing, just I haven't.
Don't fail. If I don't try, I don't fail.
Yeah.
You don't call me a failure.
If I try and fail, then I have to accept I'm a failure.
Oh, it's difficult.
I'm not built for that. Like, if I'm already fighting every day of my life just to survive, I'm not built for failing every day of my life. I have to be able to have a life that supports that. And the reason, like I said, for me, once I was able to see my mistakes as growth and learning moments and just these powerful things that I'm like, wow, do you know what? The best times in my life have been when I've made mistakes. That's when I've learned the most. That's when I've gained the most. That's when I've been better and done better. You couldn't tell me that back in the day. You couldn't even tell me I made a mistake without me lashing out and wanting to fight, because I'm taking it personal. Because I'm trying within my heart of hearts to do the right thing all the time and not make mistakes, because mistakes give you what? Punishment. But no, when I changed that sort of thinking, but I had the security and stability of home life to afford me that privilege to go out and get that. And I was only able to do that when I could provide it for myself. I couldn't rely on anyone else to provide that stability and security for me. There wasn't anyone around to provide that for me. So a lot of these young people, when we are working with them, in my head I'm like, I'm not going to get them to go to school every day. I'm not going to get them to stop being on the road. I'm not going to get them to stop shotting. But you know what? They have an adult to talk to, and if they ever need to, and when they get to the point of where when they're ready, they have a protocol or somebody to go to and say, right, how do I go about doing this now? For them, because they have to be able to come out of that and create that stability and security. Because if family or community is not providing that for these young people are never going to be able to do anything about this. So they're powerless. They just exist in the vacuum of their parents' lives or their community lives, and that's it.
Yeah.
So until they have power to change, you know, their everyday life, the home they're going to all the time, the food they're eating, the places they're frequently, they're not going to be able to change much. And for us to ask them that, I think is quite bloody cheeky, to be honest. It is. It's unfair, because we're asking them to do the impossible with no resources. Because that's the thing.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're emotionally bankrupt, yeah, you definitely.
Yeah.
You know,
They have
Definitely
no
have no
resources
resources.
to fall back on. They're not
Definitely have
going
no
to be resources
resources.
to fall back on. They're not going to be able to go home and after a hard day and just be like, I can breathe, I can eat, I can sleep, let me shower, let me chill out, turn this TV on and just shut everything out. And no, your bills are paid, you got light, you got food in the house, you're good, you can have a shower because, you got soap in the house, you can watch TV because you paid your internet because you know what I mean? But if you're getting home and you're having to think, oh man, I really want dinner, but I ain't even got that, I'm going to have some noodles now. That's another thing now that you've had to tolerate. So now it's like constantly chipping, and we're telling them all the time, regardless of this chipping, get up and get on with it. Do it. Just do it. You can do it. It's fine. You've got this. No, it's quite condescending because, I always place myself back in those shoes as a young person. I think that's what it is. And when people speak to me, that's how I would see it.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you about that. Like, how do you... Some people find it difficult to be an adult and talk to young people. So, like, I was going to ask you, like, how do you go about that?
My number one thing is I see young people and children, especially as individuals that deserve respect, they deserve the space to exist outside of us as their guardians, as their parents, as their community. They are not, how people always say they're an extension of us or they're like mini. No, they are their own people who deserve to be respected and treated like any other human being. It's like that thing where I think somebody gave me an example one time of, you'll go to work all day and you'll be able to hold it down and bite your tongue and be respectful to your colleagues and everyone and talk to them like they're people. And then the moment you get home, your child says one thing wrong and you lash out because you don't feel your child deserves the same respect as your colleagues. Because it's easier for you to lash out at your child and, I've been working all day, man. Stop it. But you was able to hold that down at work when your manager was trash, didn't do their job properly, messed up your workload. You still was like, yes, I completely understand, but this is... And you was able to get on with that job and do that job and get that done and not be disrespectful in any of that. But when you get home because they're children or because you're speaking to younger people, you can speak to them however you want. No. I see them as people. I see them as individuals. I see them as a protected group because that's what they need to be and that's how we need to see them. I genuinely love children and I think they're amazing. I don't think we give them enough credit for surviving the world, this shitty world that we've kind of built for them, and how powerless they are and how resilient they are regardless of all of that, and how intelligent and clued up they are about all the things that we like talk down to them for, like how people treat them. But if you just take a minute just to listen to them, they make way more sense than adults. They understand things a lot more clearer and to the point. And it's like, sometimes just take out the bullshit and give me the simple version, because the bullshit is everything everyone else has added, right? It's all the opinions and ideas and propaganda that every other person has piled onto this idea. But you speak to a 7-year-old about something and they'll be like, well, that's stupid, because why would you do that? And you're like, what, that is very stupid, why would you do that? And it's just as simple as that. And their simplicity just makes my heart whole. Because I feel as adults, we love to go around the houses and make everything so complicated and seem so really difficult. And sometimes it's not. Yeah, I know there's nuance in the world. Yes, there's definitely so many nuances that we have to be aware of. But they're also aware of those nuances. But people don't take enough time to listen to them or even value what they're saying to take that in. Children are not respected, children are not loved, children are not protected. And anyone who tells you different is a liar. A liar.
well, we know how the government sees young people and see them as nuisances.
Yeah.
So they
But
don't
even
want to protect them. They don't protect them from even young kids are not protecting them from, pedophiles or do you know what I mean, or any other dangers that they could face. They're not even,
Yeah, but even just as simple as like kids being able to eat at school.
Yeah.
Forget anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Is it not our duty and responsibility to make sure children eat and that they're fed? Why is that such a controversial idea? Like, why is that so like, oh, you're living in a dream world if you think every child is going to get fed food? Why not? There's enough food to do it.
And the worst thing about it is that, you've got the rights that every child has a right to education, but not every kid's got a right to eat. It don't make no sense.
And does every child have a right to education?
Well,
because how many disabled children? How many disabled children are not in education and no one cares to try and find them suitable education or get them in education? How many of them are invisible at home with their parents and have been at home with their parents for God knows how long? This world doesn't care about children, no matter how much they lie to you and say they do. I see it every day, and especially I see it when parents are constantly punished for having children anyways. The world doesn't reward you doesn't make it easier for you to raise your kids and be there for your kids. It's like you are constantly punished.
You got to make a choice. Choice.
Yeah. Choose your kids or your job. Choose this or your kids. Like, there's always, why can I not have both? I'm willing to work hard for both. And like, all it would take for society is to just slightly move that idea of what that looks like and everyone chip in. When little Larry's on the way home, he can go from school to his house and you lot can make sure he gets home all right before I get home from work. And I'd be able to work and me and Larry would have a good life. Yeah.
And that basically, that's all it takes.
This is what I'm saying. But everyone,
it just takes understanding employers and society trying to help them out. Everybody out.
And everyone just chipping and taking some individual responsibilities for the children around us. Like I said, if I get up in the morning, I'm going to the shop around the corner and Sonny is in the shop talking about them kids being out there making noise. It's kind of, like, because he doesn't want to say anything because he wants to like, oh God, don't be that, guys. Yeah, I know Sonny's a good guy, right? We all like Sonny. Sonny's our dude, he lets us come here. If we ain't got the change, he'll let us take what we need and come back. He ain't never had problems. He gives the kids ice lollies in the summer and stuff. Come on, guys. Just move over to the park. We've got the park over there. Go on to the park. Go make up the noise over there. Yeah, no, we will. We weren't even doing nothing. And they're more than happy to take themselves because they understand. Because we're having a conversation. And they understood where I was coming from. They understand where Sonny's coming from. And also, we're not telling them, you can't be there. But you lot right now are making up a bunch of noise. So if you want to do all of that, play your music, smoke, whatever, go to a park and do that. Don't be outside the shop doing that because you've got people coming in and out of the shop that don't want to see that. And that's fair enough. Do you know what I mean?
So we spoke a little bit about education in terms of kids with needs or whatever. But in your journey in education, you've been in a couple of schools now. What parallels have you seen? What have you seen in the schools?
The one thing that always...
That ticks you off, I guess.
The biggest theme for me is how the idea of institutions is sold to us in society that, it's this mechanism that has all these really important parts and everyone plays really structured, important parts of it. And everyone has to make decisions. And if one person makes the wrong decisions, then the whole system could fall apart. And then you get in there and you realise it's just a bunch of different people making different choices and no one's actually communicating each other. Nobody knows what anyone else is doing until it's too late.
Yeah.
That really shocked me about schools. That one teacher could take their individual experience of a young person and based on that, make decisions about that young person's entire school life. So, for example, if you have a young person who might let's say a young white person who will say the N-word, but because the teacher dealing with it is white, they would be like, oh no, it's not that serious, let it go. And then you'll get a young black boy who will respond to being called the N-word. Oh, he's got to be permanently excluded. It's never okay. It is never okay to be violent. Okay. The white student was violent first when they repeated a word that triggers this young black boy who has probably heard that word called to them to degrade them time and time again. When you degrade somebody, eventually they will punch you back. Like, if you keep attacking somebody, eventually they are going to fight back. It's very rare that people will just sit there and allow themselves to be punched and punched and punched and punched. At some point they're going to try to fight back and get out of there. But the young black boy will be punished more. And that's just one simple example of how now that teacher can say that black boy is being permanently excluded, and that black boy will be excluded because they responded to something, and the white student goes on, and the white student will do it again and again, and they will still go and do school and keep being told, oh, don't do that, don't say that, da, 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 da. And I just wish that was afforded to young black students as well. I don't think it's a bad thing to be understanding to the growth of young people. I think it's a good thing. I just think it needs to be extended to everybody and not just particular groups.
That's the word I'm trying to look for now. You try to sort of like get people to see where you were coming from with certain things, right?
Yeah, definitely. You try to have those conversations, and I spoke to a lot of, and even me as well, working in schools as pastoral support worker, I faced racism from the teachers myself. And I wasn't able to combat that. I wasn't able to respect the black students who were facing racism from other teachers and staff members. And I'm an adult who has been trained and practiced this for years. And I had the words. I know how the system works. I filled in the forms. I followed the rules. But then one thing I very much realized was that those systems are created to keep you in that system. They're not created to actually help you combat the system. It's like how they say HR is not for you, it's for your work. That's your organization's HR. HR is not there for you. Don't forget. Those systems are not there to support you. They're there to support the school to keep doing what they're doing and not be held accountable. So even me I couldn't do it. And, even trying to rally other black staff members was like, I was trying to build a cult. You know how everyone responded was just like, what? How many black people hanging out together?
Yeah, it's in the same table. Oh my God. What's going on here? Yeah.
There's a revolution coming. Shut it down. Shut it down. So even that, I ended up having to walk out of many of jobs and many of schools on the fact that I refused to sit by and watch students being discriminated against time and time again. And it's not just about racism as well, because there's also white students who might be poor or have an individual learning needs that will then be treated differently and mistreated in schools and discriminated against, and I can't sit there and watch that. So if I can't do nothing about it, if I don't have power, then I do have power to remove myself, because that's then about my mental health and my life that's now being personally affected, because the emotional tolls it takes on us to do the work we do and see people in harm and have to sit in that because we can't do nothing about it sometimes. You know what I mean? You just have to sit in that and let the harm happen to them and just support them through that, which I'm all here for because I know that's life. But there's certain particular harm where you're like, no, these are grown people with agendas against 12, 13, 14-year-olds. And it makes no sense to me. Because is your life that sad that you're coming to work every day to beef with a 13-year-old?
Yeah.
You have a vendetta against this 13. No matter how many times they've annoyed you, no matter how many times, you're the adult. You deal with it. You accept it. You tolerate it. Because that's the job you've taken. It's just like, if you don't want to do that, then don't be a teacher. Then you won't have to tolerate that.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's so many teachers are in teaching and they shouldn't be in teaching. They don't even like kids.
This is it.
They just want to bully kids.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And they literally go there for the power trip. It's just like the people who applied to be police officers. It's a power
security
trip.
Guards.
Yeah.
Power trip.
Yeah, they're the ones that got bullied in school or never got anywhere or don't have anything outside of their everyday life, so they need to come into their workplace.
And got no agency.
Yeah, to find some agency against children. And that's always mad to me, because I'm like, how are you beefing a 10-year-old, bro? They're 10. Like, relax. Like generally, relax. They're 10. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get it either.
And I know a lot of people are like, oh, you just make excuses for them and da-da-da-da. Maybe. But when we look at how hard life is, do I really need to make excuses?
Exactly.
Like, there's enough reason to give these children a break. There's enough.
It's
and even
mad.
education, like, going to school's not about getting an education. It's about conforming. It's about teaching you to get in line and follow rules and follow instructions and be a good little boy or girl for society and be a good citizen when you grow up and get your job and pay your taxes and keep your head down and be compliant and don't question the powers
and then remember things. We need to remember things.
Yeah. But even that, they don't really care about that. They're like, oh, no. As long as you don't question the powers that be and just follow the rules, that's all they want. So even that, like, curiosity in children is killed from a very young age. From when they start going where? School. Because before that, you know, when you see kids in nursery... Innocent. Yeah. And if depending on what the nursery structure's like and curriculum's like, because some of them, you know, they try to prep them from early for school life. Do you know what I mean? So some of the nurseries kind of also perpetuate that same idea that schools do. But if you get a really good nursery where it's like, oh yeah, like I remember with my son with the community nursery, you know, he could go outside whenever he wanted. He never had to stay inside at all times. So if he wanted to go, you know, he was doing some paintings. He's like, this is boring. I want to go in a sandbox. So you just be like, I'm going in the sandbox. And he'll be able to do that. And he loved that because that afforded him so much independence. And because of that, he was able to more focus on the classes they had. Because he knows he can go outside anytime he wants. So he was able to actually sit there and do the painting properly and write his name and do all of that. And then be like, oh, okay, now I'm done. I can go outside. Whereas with the nursery before that, he was just like, yeah, but they don't let me do anything. I'm not allowed to do anything. I have to do what they're doing. Like, eat when they want me to, da-da-da-da-da. And at this one, he never complained about having to eat when they wanted him to or nap when he would. I don't even think he clocked that he still had structure. Because there was still a bit of freedom of choice for him to choose how he engaged and when he engaged in that structure. But then at some point, he just didn't even want to fight. He just accepted it and was like, yeah, that's fine. Because I still get to go outside when I want. And it's just those little tiny things that give them agency and autonomy over themselves that then builds that, that curiosity within their brains of, okay, I don't have to do exactly what you're saying. I can find my own way of doing it and do it and get it done. So how do I like to do things? Let me figure this out from now.
That's how you build resiliency.
Yeah. And this is before they've even got into primary school. So you can start to build on that curiosity from young. And then it's like, as soon as they get to primary school anyways, that's going to be knocked the hell out of them. As soon as they walk through the door. Because it's conform.
Are you one of the people that think that there's a different way to teach black kids than there is to teach kids from other cultures?
I think there's definitely a way to teach everybody. Everybody has different learning needs. Nobody learns the same, first of all. So let's start there. If everybody learned the same, then yeah, we can teach everybody the same, right? That would be easy. But nobody learns the same. Everyone has individual learning needs. So even me and you as Black people, you're going to learn differently from me. So I can't be taught the same way you've been taught. That's not going to work for me. It's only going to confuse me and stress me out more because now I'm having to conform to your way of learning. So yeah, 120%. And that's the biggest strength I have when I am working with young people. And not just young people, it's very funny. Even when I'm working with adults, even when I'm with my colleagues, understanding that one colleague speaks differently to another, and how I engage with one colleague is not the same way I'm going to engage with the other, because one might take it personally where the other one understands this is just Lucy, that's how she just talks. Well, one of them might go home crying and be like, oh my God, Lucy hates me, she's such a mean person. You can't deal with everyone the same because not everyone is the same, and that's okay. That's okay to be so multifaceted that you can move around and cross borders without that restrictions of we have to be one way. And that's what I was saying earlier. You can exist in multiple ways. We can learn in multiple ways. We can understand in multiple ways. We don't have to do it in just this is the right way and this is the only way. And if you think outside of this box, then you're stupid or you don't, or you're doing too much. No, that's limiting. That's so limiting. And it does nothing for any of us. There is no growth, there is no learning, there is no strength that can come from that. So yeah, I genuinely believe that there's different ways of everyone learning, and I think the idea of us all sitting down in a class to learn is not the best way. I think learning happens in everyday life. Learning happens when, like I always say, my most prominent moments as a youth worker I've always been on the day trips at the back of the bus on the way home or on the way there.
Yeah.
That's where the best youth work ever happens. And even outside of that, there's other moments, real life moments happening in these children's lives that give you a greatest opportunity to then, this is a learning moment. Jump in there. This is a great lived experience that you can use to help this young person learn. But that doesn't happen in a classroom sitting down with a piece of paper.
Yeah.
That happens while they're living, while they're doing life. So yeah, I think most of our learning comes outside of school. Most of our actual learning that we keep with us and that we carry with us happens outside of school. And what happened in school was more about the social aspects rather than like the educational aspect of learning. Like you learn about how to make friends, how to learn whether you can trust people or not, how to engage with people, how far to take it with people. You learn all of those cues socially from school, and that's through lived experience and making mistakes with your friends and messing up and then learning again the next time when you build another friendship, what that looks like. Lived experience is the best teacher.
Yeah, totally. All right, so you can change education forever, yeah, and you've got the life coach. The three main things you could do if you could change education for the better. What would you do? 3 things.
Oh my God. I would take, I'm not sure, don't quote me, I don't know if it's Sweden or Denmark, I can't remember, their schooling system. It's really dope. I don't think the kids start school until they're about 7 or 8. I think I might be wrong on where it is, but there's a schooling system I'm aware of where they start at the age of 7 to 8, which I think is great.
Yeah, it's that late, yeah.
Yeah, and when they start, they usually do a lot of social stuff. So they learn about, friendships, building relationships, self-esteem, confidence. And then they start with the basics of just learning how to read and then just learning how to do math. And then eventually these kids will go into secondary school where they pick what they want to learn. They choose what subjects they want to learn, and they focus on those and they work on those. And that country has a great success rate with those students doing well in those fields, because that's what they wanted to do and that's what was encouraged. And the teachers are also well trained. You know, they have to have masters, PhDs, they have to have been trained for about 10 years to have the job. They're well paid, they're well compensated for this, but they're not just teaching you about maths and English. They're going to teach you social life within that, how that relates back socially to when you get outside in society. So it's not like the box classroom idea of learning. It's that merging the outside world with the education and bringing it together to create some kind of harmony, where it allows you to see how you can place this back in the real world. How are you going to use this back in the real world? I think those are the kind of changes. So it's like, first things first, kids don't need to be at school from like 5 years old. I'm sorry. What's a 5-year-old doing, having to get up early, get in time, do lunch, they need to be napping. Like, they're 5. 5 years they've been on this earth, not ready for the nap. But by 7, 8, you see the difference between a 5-year-old and a 7 and 8-year-old, right? It's huge difference. So giving them like 2 extra years, 3 extra years also allows them not to despise school so much, because they're having to do things they're incapable of doing because they are children responding and acting childlike to something, you know? Yeah, that would definitely be one when they start.
Right. That's number one.
Yeah.
But 2?
Marrying the harmony between education and the outside world. That having to be the life coach, like a must in every lesson. You know, how does this relate back to the real world? How do we use this back in the real world? What does that look like? And I'm not saying that you're going to take your multiplications and then be like, how am I going to go and multiply in the real world? No, I mean, okay, you're great at maths. What does that look like in the real world? How do we use that? What's your interest? You know, are you just good at maths? Do you want to be an accountant? Or you good at maths where you want to be a coder? Or you good at maths where, you know, you just like maths, but it's not really, you prefer to do something in English because that's where your interest actually is. How does it relate back to the real world and relate back to that young person? And third,
number 3,
training for teachers. Training for teachers.
Be on a high level.
Yeah. You need to, you know, like the idea of like surgeons and doctors. Teachers are literally molding the minds of our future politicians, doctors, and whatnot. So shouldn't they be held to a certain account?
Yep.
In their capabilities.
Yep.
Yeah, you are literally molding the future of our society.
So, what do you think is more important? Do you think it is the acumen, or is it the life experience?
I think it's both. I think that's what it is. It's about.
You think they get into education too young? Then teachers get into education too young.
I think they get into education expecting or feeling entitled to validation or respect because they are doing something that they deem to be, you know, for society. You know, like it's a good thing. Oh, I'm a teacher, I'm here to help. I teach the people and mold the future. That doesn't afford you the right to come in here and act how you want to act and treat people how you want to treat them.
Yeah, it also depends on where they work. Maybe a lot of them, when they work in an urban setting, that's something for their CV. They don't really care about the clientele that they have.
Exactly. And that's the thing as well. Because if you go through vigorous training and you're doing all of this work, it's because you really want that job and you really care and you really want to make a difference, right? So already that's going to chip away at all those people who are not serious about this, and this is not something they really want to do. Just like being a surgeon or a doctor, how many people drop out within the first 2 years because they're like, I'm not made for this. I'm not made for it, because it's not easy. It's hard. How many years of studying you have to do? How many levels from residency to junior doctor to this to that you have to do before you actually get your white coat? The same process needs to be had for teachers as well. So by the time they get there, we all know this is somebody who's dedicated. This is somebody who really wants it. So even when they mess up, that's somebody we really want to help to stay there and do better and teach them. You know? But yeah, definitely lived experience is just as important. Like, you can't be... I think there definitely needs to be like an anti-oppressive structure to that training, where it's constantly brought back to how do we make sure that we balance out the power imbalances in these situations. You know, how do we help the black child thrive just as much as the white child? You know, just because you can help the white students in the class thrive doesn't mean you get to ignore the black children now. Like, how do you translate that back to the black children? And that's about experience and learning about lived experience and understanding different cultures and communities. Cultural competence, I guess, being a big part of that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Cultural
so those would be my
competence.
3 things. Probably missed a few things because when you think about safeguarding and everything else. But anyways, if I'm just being very hoo-ha about it, not thinking about it too much, that's what I would say. Those are the 3 things.
All right. Maybe we can talk about safeguarding the next time we talk, innit? We can talk about that aspect of things. That's a big thing nowadays. That's why I was going into talking before about keeping kids safe. But yeah. All right. Okay. Well, we're gonna call it there. Because we could talk all night.
We could do
you know
this.
what we're like. But we've been in your car going, right, I've really got to go back to work, but give me 5 more minutes. Oh my goodness. Lucy, man, thank you for coming on. Thank you so much.
No worries, anytime. Well, just let me know next time. And I'll be sure not to have my bonnet on at this time and be ready so I can look cute on camera and everyone can actually see my face.
Yeah, it's all good. Well, now I've got all my, all my stuff sorted now. We're good to go anytime. So, yeah, man. Even if you wanted to do it face to face, again, sitting in your car, if you can fit in your car, and then you got your belly going on. Not beer belly, people. She's pregnant. Sorry, she's got beer belly. Don't want to cause
wish she was a beer belly right now.
How far you got to go again? Like 3 weeks, you said?
No, 2 months.
Okay. Where did I get 3 weeks from? No one knows.
I have no idea.
I don't know what's going on. I'm wishing it on you. That's what it is. You said you want to hurry up and get to the end, innit? That's what it was.
Yeah, I do. I'm tired already.
So in my mind, I said 3 weeks. Weird. But but yeah, no, we'll definitely do another one. Definitely, and we'll keep this going. You can be another one of the co-hosts of the show.
Yeah.
There'll be a couple, and then one day we'll do a group one where we all just go and come on at once, and we'll just talk the breeze.
That's great. I've got. I think there's some topics, depending on the week, I might message you depending on what's going on in popular culture. There's some topics that I sometimes want to cover and I'm like, who can I cover this with? So I'll definitely be reaching out to let you know when I have my topics of the week that we can kind of discuss. Yeah,
don't worry, man. My friend said she'd be up for that as well.
Yeah.
So she'd be up for that so we can have a good debate and a good talk about it. So So yeah, man, listen, thank you again. And listeners, listen, Lucy is so amazing. She's helped me so much and she taught me a lot. Even the short time that we even worked together was great as well.
No, you're pretty dope yourself. I don't think you give yourself enough credit sometimes.
Hey man, I'm just me. I'm just trying, man. But yeah, listen, this is GM the Life Coach. I just want to say thank you for listening, guys. Remember, you can listen to the show on Spotify, Spreaker.com, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that you get your podcasts, guys, we're there. And then also you can watch us on YouTube. You can also get the audio version of what you're hearing now on YouTube as well. So if you're just stuck in a YouTube mode, that's what you'll hear. You just won't get all of the old ones or the old season 1 audio sessions. But yeah. Anyway, once again, thank you, Lucy. Say bye.
Bye. Thank you.
All right. Don't log off. I was going to super stop. Don't log off. Anyway, Jim the Life Coach, and I'm out. Bye. GM, the Life Coach.